We left off last video getting the basic structure of our user info screen all set up. So now it's time to build those item info view controllers. The first piece of the puzzle though is we're going to start with one of the basic views. So pulling up the design here, let's start dissecting what we're actually going to build first. The first view we're going to start off is this SF symbol view that you see here. Like the example here, you see the folder SF symbol, public repos, which is like a little title label, and then we have account label below it. So that little view, as you can see on the design, gets reused, right? We have the public repos, public gists, the following, followers, right? There's a different title, different count, and different SF symbol for each one. So we want that view to be reusable. That way we can just pass in a type of item info, and based on that type, it'll populate the correct SF symbol, title, and the count will have to come from the user, obviously. So we're going to make that view reusable. And in future videos, as you can see, we're going to put those into a stack view. So public repos and public gists will be in a horizontal stack view, left and right. But that's in a future video. This video is going to focus on creating this reusable view, the item info view. So let's do it. All right, so if we stop this from running, and in our views here, our custom views, let's minimize this, clean up a little bit here. We don't have a view. Oh yeah, we do have a views folder. So do Command N on the views folder. It's going to be a Cocoa Touch class. Hit next. It's not going to be a UI label. It's going to be a UI view, and it's going to be the GF item info view. Some of these naming are going to be very similar. Naming is the hardest thing in programming, but here we go. So we have our GF item info view. Now, let's start off by talking about, what are the items we need? Pulling up the design again, right? We're going to need a UI image view for the SF symbol. We're going to need a GF title label for like the public repos, that title. And then we're going to need a count label for the count. So it's three simple elements. So let symbol image view equal UI image view, and let title label equal, it's a GF title label, right? And this title is going to be aligned left, and our font size is going to be 14. Again, the font size I've dialed in. And then let count label equal GF title label. The count is going to be centered. If you remember on the design, it is centered on the label. And again, it's going to be 14, same size as our title. And then as always, we need our init methods. So init with frame, we got to call the super.init. And again, with frame, we're going to pass in the frame we did there. And then we're going to, well, we don't have the configure yet. We're going to get our storyboard error. There we go. I'm faster than UX code. Get our spacing correct, create our configure function, private func configure, and this is where we're going to lay out everything. Let's make sure we call configure up here in our initializer method. So now what are we going to configure? We have to just lay out the UI basically, how you saw it in the design. And then the other functions we're going to create a set function where we're going to pass in an enum of what type of info it is, and then it's going to adjust accordingly. We'll get to that in a second. Let's lay out our overall UI first. So the first thing we got to do is add those subviews. So add subview of the symbol image view, add subview title label, add subview count label. And now remember, title label and count label, we take care of the translates auto resizing mask into constraints in the actual subclass, but we're not doing that for the default UI image view. So we have to do that here. Symbol image view dot translates, that equals false. And then we'll also do symbol image view dot content mode equals dot scale aspect fill. And we're doing this here because we're passing in any number of different SF symbols, right? We got the heart for the followers, the folder for the repos, and basically, if you don't do that, they won't be aligned, they won't kind of look right. So we want to scale the aspect to fill the image view, and then remember we have to also adjust the tint color. Symbol image view dot tint color, and that is going to equal dot label, right? Because we want it to match our title, and our title label's color is the label color. Now it's time for constraints. You getting tired of constraints yet? So similar to, well, let me type this first here. NSLayout constraint.activate. So similar to the header child view controller, we're going to base everything around our SF symbol, like that image in the upper left. That's kind of like the anchor of our layout here. So the symbol image view is what we're going to do first. So symbol image view dot top anchor dot constraint is going to be equal to the self dot top anchor. We're just pinning it directly to the top. No padding, no nothing. So same thing for the leading edge. Symbol image view dot leading anchor dot constraint equal to self dot leading. Again, no padding at all. We're going to handle the padding when we put them in the stack view in a future video. Now we want the height and width hard-coded of our SF symbol. So symbol image view dot width anchor dot constraint equal to 20. Same thing we did for the location one. Symbol image view dot height anchor dot constraint equal to 20. So now we have our symbol image view pinned in the top left, just a square of 20 by 20. And like I said, we're using that as our anchor. So we're going to pin our title label to that SF symbol. So title label dot center Y anchor dot constraint is equal to symbol image view dot center Y anchor. We're just basically aligning the centers of the image with our label. We're going to center that up nicely. And then title label dot leading anchor dot constraint is going to be equal to symbol image view dot trailing, right, the right side of the image view, and then the constant is 12. And again, that's just a number I dialed in to get it looking good. And title label dot trailing, we want this to go all the way to the edge of the view. So dot constraint is going to be equal to not symbol image view, self dot trailing anchor. So this view, we want this to be pinned all the way to the edge of the view. And then title label dot height anchor dot constraint equal to 18. And again, I know I'm repeating myself, but repetition is key. The reason it's 18 is because our font is 14, and we're making it a little bigger to adjust for the Y's, the J's, and the G's, those little hang down letters. And then now let's do our count label, which is going to be below these two and fill the whole view left to right. So count label dot top anchor, we want to pin this to the bottom of our SF symbol, dot constraint equal to symbol image view dot bottom anchor, and the constant is going to be 4. Again, I've just dialed this in. Oops, not an M, comma. And the leading and trailing, again, we're just going to pin it to the left and right edges. So count label dot leading anchor dot constraint is going to be equal to self dot leading anchor. No constant, we don't need that. Just pin it all the way to the edge. Count label dot trailing anchor dot constraint, again same thing, self dot trailing anchor, pin it all the way to the edge. And then the height is going to be the same as our title label, dot height anchor dot constraint equal to 18. So now we have our UI all laid out nice. We're good to go there. That's in our configure method. It's going to get called on initialization. Everything's all set up. So that's when it actually gets initialized. Now we want to create a function to where we actually set it and we pass in an enum of what type of info that is. So we need to set up that enum first. So back up to the top here, we're going to do enum. It's going to be called item info type. And we're going to have a case of repos, gists, followers, and following, right? The 4 different types that we can have. Again, pulling the design back up, you can see the 4 different types, and you can see how if you were going to add more different types, like you wanted to add another card to this this UI, you could just add this item info type and pass that in. So now that we have the enum, again, 2 vertical spaces, I like that. Let's go back down and we're going to create a function to where we're going to pass in an item info type, and based on that type, we're going to format the view. And this will make more sense once the function is written here. So func, and it's not private because we're gonna be using this function outside here. So func set, and it's going to be item info type, and then we're going to pass in the item info type. And then here's where we're going to use a switch statement based on the enum. So switch item info type. We want the local lowercase one, and then I like to just let Xcode tell me case dot repos. I was going to say, I like to have Xcode like tell me, hey, we're not, switch statements must be exhaustive, and it fills it in for me. It's not doing that. So I guess we just got to type, right? Case.gis, cool. Just put in break right now just to get Xcode to stop yelling at me, because you can't have blank stuff here. We'll see if Xcode now tells me it's not exhaustive. There we go. This is the error I was looking for. Switch must be exhaustive. Fill in the missing cases. Cool. That's the lazy person switch statement. Break, just to get Xcode to stop yelling at us. We're going to fill in the code here in a second. So basically what this is happening here is in a future view controller, we're going to call set on our item info view that we create in the future view controller. And we're going to pass in either .repos, .gist, .followers, .following. And based on whatever we pass in, the item info view is going to be formatted for that type. So basically when we see case.repos, we need to set the SF symbol and then also set the title. So symbol image view.image is going to equal UI image. And if you remember, SF symbols are of the system name and then the string. Okay, so for our repos, again, pulling back up the design, we have this folder. So you see repo, we have the folders, we have the text align left icon for GIS, we have the heart for followers, and the persons for following. So let's get all these right now and set up our constants file. Remember I said we were going to use more SF symbols. So for the folder, let's pull up our SF symbols app here. And if you go into search, type in folder, and you see it's just here in the upper left, folder. That one's quite simple. So let's go back to Xcode, and the string is going to be folder. I'm going to actually type these out here first. No, never mind. I shouldn't have said that. We're gonna just go ahead and set up the constants right away here. Do this all at once. So remember in our SF symbols constants file, static let folder, or I'm sorry, repos. Let's call this what it is. And it's going to be folder, and static let gis equal blank string for now, static let followers, blank string for now, static let following, blank string for now. We're going to come back and fill those in based on our SF symbols. So back to the SF symbol. I believe I did the text align left here. Yeah, text align left, this one here. I'm going to point the arrow to it. So it's just text.align left. I wish you could copy and paste. I don't know. Maybe there is a way to do it. Maybe list? No? Okay. Anyway, text.align left. So let's make sure. I guess we know if it breaks, we had a typo. Text.align left. Cool. So that's for GIS. For followers, we had the heart. So back to SF symbols. Type in heart. Cool. We had the empty suit.heart and heart are basically the same thing. So we're just going to take heart because that's much easier. So back to Xcode, just type in heart. And then for following, we had persons one. So back to SF symbols and person. And here you can see in the left, we use person.to. So you can see there's a wide variety of ones you could have used, but we use person.to here. So back to Xcode and person.to. So do a Command B to make sure we get some autocomplete, because that is the benefit. Now that we have our SF symbols all set up here in our constants file, back to the GF item info view. So instead of doing, system name.folder, we can do SF symbols dot repos, and we're good there. And so we're setting up the SF symbol image view. Now we need the title. So title label dot text is going to equal, and this is going to be public repos, right? That's the title we had in the design. So let's just copy and paste this, because we're gonna have to do this for every case here. So for followers, following, all that stuff, except now this is not SF symbols.repos, this is SF symbols.gis. And instead of public repos, public gis, cool. Now for followers, we want to do SF symbols.followers. And instead of public repos, followers. And again, same thing here. This is now following. Make sure you remember copy paste errors, be very, very careful. And again, following. So now what this function does, when we call set, we're going to pass in one of these item info types, repos, gist, followers, following. You'll see this come into play in future videos. And based on whatever we passed in, we're going to set the SF symbol image view to whatever SF symbol is appropriate, and we're going to set the title to whatever's appropriate. Cool. Now the one label we're missing is the count. So let's actually add a count to this one. You could have a separate function to set the count, but we can do set info item type, and then we can say with count, and pass in an int for that. Because remember the count on our user object, if we go back to our model of user, we're going to pass in basically the number of public repos, the number of public gists, the number of followers, etc. And you see that's an int. So that's what we're going to get back from our model. So if we go back to the item info view, we're going to pass that in as the count. So we can also do count, count label dot text. And now this is a string, so we can easily do equals string and then pass in the count. So we're basically casting the int as a string to fill in our text here. And we actually don't need to do that in each case, my bad, because the count is always going to be the same no matter what case it is, right? Like the count is always going to be the count that we passed in. So basically what's going to happen is it's going to go through the switch statement, act accordingly based on the item info type we pass in. And then after the switch statement runs, we're always going to be setting the count label.text equal to whatever count we pass in here. So with this one function, this is how we're actually formatting our item info view when we use it here, when we create the view controller. So pulling up the design, we have our item info view all done, ready to go, ready to be used. We can't quite see the fruits of our labor just yet, but here in the future video, when we're actually going to build these, this GitHub item info view controller and the followers item info view controller, once we build those, you're going to see how, back to the code here, you're going to see how this item info view and this set function comes into play really, really nicely. So on to the next video.